33 years and is currently a senior lecturer. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, everybody. To hear those fighting words and to see everybody here. I'm bringing tonight a message of support to this rally from the Royal College of Midwives, who are currently having their annual conference, but they've just finished it. I want to say a little bit about what conditions are like for midwives, and then a bit about our successful strike last year, and why the Juniors Doctors campaign is so important, although we've heard exactly why it is already. I've been a midwife for a long time, but I've never seen conditions as stressful and as difficult as they are now. Our local maternity hospitals are struggling with acute staffing shortages, so much so that on recent occasions they've had to close their doors to women in labour. The RCM calculates that in the NHS we need 2,600 midwives more. But no one in government will take responsibility for this. Last year, a House of Commons Select Committee reported that the Department of Health was unable to state who was actually responsible for calculating, deciding midwifery staffing levels. That shocking situation is a direct result of the Health and Social Care Act that we heard about just now, which has removed responsibility from the Secretary of State for Health and left the NHS to be torn apart by privatisation. And there are just not enough staff to cope. Heads of midwifery are saying they feel powerless to act. A few weeks ago, a post on Facebook went viral in the midwifery community. It was written by a 22-year-old midwife who's been qualified for a year. She works in a local trust. She's actually made it here tonight from the conference, but she's got a sore throat, and she's happy for me to read it out and share this extract. She wrote it after going on the protest at the Tory party conference and joining with all the other health workers protesting at the Tory cuts and austerity. And she says, "Yesterday a man came to me livid with frustration. This is not good enough, he told me. My daughter's been waiting hours to be seen. He went on to tell me, it isn't you, it isn't the other midwives, the care's been impeccable, but the situation just isn't good enough." I know, I agree. What he didn't know was that heartbreakingly this is a daily occurrence in my life as a midwife. What he didn't know was that actually yesterday was a rare Saturday off for me, yet I'd come into work so that my amazing colleagues could have a break from their 13-hour shift. A break they won't be paid for, whether they take it or not, but that they physically need as human beings. I'd come into the unit so that women like his daughter could be seen, so that our unit could be open to women who needed our skills as midwives, doctors, healthcare professionals, women who were in labour, women whose babies weren't moving much, women who are concerned about their own well-being. And that weekend, she says, 5 maternity units in the northwest have been closed over the weekend. These women need our care. We're literally being worked to the ground. I've shed too many tears over a career I love, missed too many meal breaks, not physically been able to care for too many women the way I wanted to, spent too many days off in work, lost too much sleep over the stress I am under, watched more of my colleagues than I could count, myself included, be signed off work with stress in the early years of their career, watched too many good midwives leave careers they love because the workload and stress are too high. This is not humane. Please let's end this. Protect your NHS, your children's future, is what she wrote. And actually, just before I came here tonight, I was talking to a midwife who had tears in her eyes saying, I can't keep going, I can't go on anymore. Thousands of midwives have shared the post, so it clearly chimes with what midwives are experiencing on a daily basis. So what's Jeremy Hunt's response to this? Well, whilst refusing to address or even acknowledge the staffing crisis in midwifery, he sent out a tweet which said, "Shocking that 1,300 babies were killed or harmed during childbirth last year. How dare he?" I say to him, you're the one harming patients by starving the NHS of funding. You are the one Last year, midwives and midwifery support workers voted for strike action with an 82% majority. RCM members went on strike for the first time in their 134-year history. Why did this happen with a group of people who've been reluctant to take strike action? because they're being pushed too far. Jeremy Hunt decided that the across-the-board 1% pay increase recommended by the independent pay review body was too much, and he was only prepared to award 1% to the highest grades and nothing for the rest. And at the same time, MPs were deciding to award themselves 11%. So midwives took action, along with other health unions, with the slogan, "Enough's enough." I think the thing that drove midwives to act, even more than the issue of pay, was the utter contempt and disregard that Hunt was showing for them. And of course, they were well aware of what the Tories are doing to the health service. Whenever any healthcare workers go on strike, there's always the emotional blackmail used by the government that we're putting patients' lives at risk. But patients' lives are being put at risk by the endless cuts to the NHS and the public health service. People understand this. Striking is always a last resort for midwives and healthcare workers. They come into the NHS, as we heard from Emma, because they have a vocation to care, not because they want high pay or status. But we are seeing a surge of militancy among groups like the RCM, the BMA, who haven't wanted to go that far in the past. That's not a coincidence. It's a direct response to the Tory government's attack on NHS workers and to the Tory government's privatising and dismantling of the NHS. An 84% majority vote for the strike shows the massive depth of anger midwives are feeling, and this anger hasn't gone away. Midwives, along with the other unions, they won the strike, they forced the government to give way, at the same time exposing the Tory lie that the NHS is safe in their hands. So action can win. It was a successful strike. Study after study has shown that staffing levels are linked with safety. So we need more midwives, and we need to keep hold of the ones we've got. It's essential to have decent pay and working conditions. As Cathy Warwick, head of the RCM, said a few days ago, midwives' working conditions are women's birthing conditions. In real terms, pay for nurses and midwives has dropped 12% since 2012. Many midwives are wholly dependent on their unsocial hours payments to make ends meet. The unsocial hours issue of this dispute is absolutely central to everyone who works in the NHS, because if junior doctors lose this battle, there can be absolutely no doubt that the reward for unsocial hours will be removed from all NHS staff. And finally, the junior doctors are showing an absolutely brilliant lead. They're an inspiration. And of course, the trade union anti-strike bill is an attempt to make absolutely sure that in future we won't be able to organise against further attacks on the NHS. So now's the time then for all of us to unite against the bill, as we've heard, for all of us to fight to protect the NHS. And I'm proud to be part of a union that's saying enough's enough, and that we stand in total solidarity with the junior doctors who are fighting for the life of our NHS. Thank you.